That's Brian Anderson. He's my development engineer. And then John Lloyd. Next is Mick Bunker, who was the chief chassis engineer, chief engineer I suppose he was called. And then Tony Lee again. We used to call them ride and drive. So you would get, you'd spend several hours in the driving seat. I mean, if you go on these local trips, you hardly get in the car before you're out of it again. And we used to go for these longer drives. We probably did something like, I don't know, 250, 300 miles. And we used to have a luncheon pack put up in the booth. So we went off and had the whole day, and we would have change points, and we you know, probably over 100 miles or so, we changed cars. We'd change drivers or change cars, and then get the comments, and that was a I think quite a useful exercise. You know, selection of people, probably people not in engineering. You know, just to get good. You can get convinced you're the best at assessing a car, and you're not always the best at assessing a car.
I believe you worked for Tony, didn't you, Gordon?
I did a little bit, yes. I was just thinking, Tony and John Lloyd have quite a bit to be responsible for. I mean, without that sort of trip out to Wales, the significance of which has brought us all together today, where would we have gone? I don't know. And certainly, having been involved with the two of them, I owe a lot to them, in that 21 years I worked in the engineering department. Started off with a 3 months probationary period, which spun out to 21 years, so obviously something was going down correctly. But it's interesting, I never actually went on the Bwlch y Groes run.
Well, you were a real driver though, weren't you?
There might have been something there, but I think I got the better draw by being able to go to Canada or France or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think we ought to come on to that Canada trip a bit later, because it was one of those outrageous things.
Yes.
Minus 40 degrees centigrade.
Well, maybe Paul can work on that for the next run that you're doing.
Yeah, that might be a step too far. But there was while we're talking about that, then there was a special, because the petrol cap on the TR7 would freeze up, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, these Triumph engineers were ingenious, hence the name engineer. So tell us what the tool was when the petrol cap stuck.
Well, we were driving, the cars were taken by boat to Halifax in Canada, and Newfoundland, and we then drove the cars from there up to Timmins. And throughout the trip, we had a whiteout on the way, and the cars were completely covered with snow, and then it thawed, and then it froze, and we went to this filling station, and you couldn't get the filler cap off. You just couldn't physically get in to put fuel in. So a bit of ingenuity, a piece of wood and a couple of screws in it, and a tool was born which got you in there without any problem.
Well, I suppose we'd better go back.
We'll go back, yes.
Going back right to the beginning, you started as an apprentice in the service department.
Yeah, I did the service department, the warranty, production, etc. And then it came to a point where, excuse me, where I wanted to make a career in the company. And I wasn't interested in servicing or anything like that. I wanted to be in the engineering department, where hopefully I could contribute to the final package rather than have to work on something that somebody else had created. So I managed to get an interview with John Lloyd, the then Director of Engineering, and he gave me a 3 months probationary period, and I was working under Tony then, and we hit it off, and we had some very good times together, I must say. And it was a family. It was a family business, really. You know, there was we all had a total vehicle involvement. You know, I was involved with cooling, performance, heating, handling, you name it. We just got on with it as a family. I mean, I was testing Atlas vans, Herald vans.
It was all glamour, wasn't it?
It was very glamorous. You know, the Ensign or the Vanguard, you know. But it was still very enjoyable, you know. I mean, we had the Sabrina engine in a Vanguard as a test vehicle.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of people here who won't actually know what the Sabrina engine is.
No, the Sabrina engine was the 2-litre twin cam engine that they put in the TRS for Le Mans. And to get mileage on the thing, on the roads, they put it into a standard Vanguard. Should have seen the looks on some people's faces. They just couldn't get the head around this thing.
Well, Le Mans, you were involved in some of the earlier Le Mans efforts. You became deputy competition supervisor later.
Yes.
Le Mans later. Graham Robson was competition secretary.
That's right.
And it was
Ray Henderson was competition manager, should we say?
Yeah. And then you were his number 2, effectively.
That's correct. Yes.
And you know, we've all watched the Formula 1 racing, and we see how you've got to dress in all the fire retarding equipment. Let me see if I can find a picture of Gordon in his protective clothing here. Well, there's one of them. That's actually a Reims, isn't it? But that was testing with one of the Le Mans Spitfires. Ah, here we are. Here's Gordon in the pits of Le Mans.
Sleeves rolled up.
Yeah, and he's
supposed to be protecting the guy filling the car up with fuel.
That's a fire blanket in his hands, I believe.
So bare arms and you notice a tie, shirt and tie, overdressed.
He hasn't changed though, has he? Well, this chap here is Harry Webster. Tell us who Harry Webster was.
Harry Webster was the director of engineering. He was slightly superior to John Lloyd at the time. And next to him, on his left, is George Turnbull, who was the managing director of the Triumph Motor Company.
And when this picture was taken, Gordon didn't know this lady, but he did by the end of that day, I think. So, and that's the Spitfire engine that you did a lot of testing in.
Yes, it was quite good because when you look back on those times, I mean, I used to go in to the factory, the car would be on a trailer, I go to Myra on my own, unload the thing, drive it for however long, put it back on the trailer, come back, go around to John Lloyd's house, and we used to kick a few stones saying, "It's not working, this one isn't, John, we've got to do something about it." He said, just have a whiskey and we'll just talk it over. Well, you'd never get that now. And I've blown the engines up at Myra, and they've had them in pieces in the engine shop, and the engines have still been warm. That was how people worked in those days. It's just uncanny. And John Lloyd said, if you don't stop driving these things, he said, we'll never get to Le Mans.
How quick do these little spitties go?
Well, not in the Macau car, which was that with the top cut off. I averaged 130 miles an hour around Myra. That was an average lap.
I think that stood for quite a while, that record.
Yes.